Hey troops, welcome back to the channel. My name's Ryan. I'm a former Royal Marines commando from the United Kingdom. Today we're going to be reacting to United States of America versus China. Now this is in regards to the weapon technology comparison, okay? So who's got the better tech in the military is what I'm getting at. Today's video is going to be in the description as always, guys. Make sure to go share, give them a follow and all of that if you want to watch them. Without me talking over it, all of that good stuff. And I'll see you in the comments, troops. Make sure to like, share, subscribe. It really does help me out, guys. Let's go.
Move over, Russia, because the United States has a new competitor determined to reshape the world in its own image. But as the likelihood of the conflict between China and the US grows, just how do the two sides' military technologies compare? And why are America's military leaders warning that China's less advanced military technology might actually be an advantage? In 2023, President Joe Biden delivered a crippling blow to the Chinese economy when he introduced legislation that would ban US companies from cooperating with Chinese counterparts in the development or export of advanced computer microchips.
I was just about to say microchips is a big thing with regards how the military operates. The microchips stop, the military doesn't function. The modern military doesn't function. And that's a problem I was thinking about today, actually, with regards, you know, technology and stuff and how it advances. You're only as good as the kit that you've got available. And, you know, the harder the technology, the more advanced it is, the harder it is to acquire.
The CHIPS and Science Law was aimed at boosting American production of semiconductors, seen as critical to global competition in the 21st century, and included over $50 billion in subsidies to kickstart American innovation and production. But the part of the law that put in place prohibitions on U.S. companies from working with Chinese companies was merely an extension of a 2022 law that forbade the export of microchips made with U.S. equipment to Chinese companies. Technology has become a key area of global competition, and microchips are the key to technologies ranging from clean energy to artificial intelligence and advanced weapon systems.
Yeah, these chips are becoming a bit of a problem. I'm seeing this a lot in the news at the moment with regards, you know, their availability and how, you know, common they are in different bits of kit. Not just military stuff either. We're talking about cars and everything, guys.
Known as the chip war, it's impacted nations around the world. In the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the EU and the United States became significantly concerned over the resiliency of the microchip trade around the world. The United States used to lead the world in semiconductor manufacturing and development, but during the height of globalization, those capabilities were offshored to East Asian companies, where production and innovation costs were much cheaper.
This is the thing, you know, someone's made some money out of this a long time ago, guys. Normally politicians as well. So when they're talking about outsourcing it and getting it manufactured and made elsewhere, what they're really saying is we've got a lot of money to put our stuff in a different country and we're going to save a bit of money in the process as well.
For years, the U.S. reaped the economic benefit, but with the rise of China, America and the European Union have both been left extremely vulnerable to blockade or interruption of their microchip supply. With its ability to threaten supply routes in East Asia and Taiwan itself, where the vast majority of the world's advanced chips are manufactured and developed, bringing back the ability to fabricate microchips to friendly shores became more important than ever. But equally important was the need to slow down the pace of Chinese technological development. The post-Cold War peace dividend is officially over, and the age of great power competition has now returned. China wishes to reshape the world in its authoritarian image in order to ensure the survival of the Chinese Communist Party, and to upend the current liberal rules-based order and install one much more favorable to itself. But first, we want to thank the sponsor of today's video. Technological ascension has been swift and alarmed many in the West over fears of what it might do with an ever-modernizing military. Thus, the EU and the US have teamed up to both try to contain Chinese development and increase their own resiliency in case of a global conflict. The EU has invested 43 billion euros into its own CHIPS Act and aims to double its market share of the global semiconductor industry from 10% to 20% by 2030. China has invested around $150 billion into its own semiconductor industry as part of an estimated $1.4 trillion budget aimed at developing new technologies.
So what that basically equates to is what we've put into it in terms of Europe, America. It doesn't really fare well with what regards what China's putting in. So in a nutshell, I don't think anything's going to change anytime soon, really.
However, China's industry produces largely far less advanced chips for use in common consumer electronics, and the nation lacks the expertise and manufacturing capability to produce the most advanced chips, such as Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company's 3-nanometer chip. This goes in line with China's troubles with developing advanced manufacturing equipment, such as 6-axis milling machines critical for fabricating cutting-edge aircraft and other parts for high-tech assets. Currently, foreign companies utilize their own 6-axis machines, with Chinese counterparts closely supervising the process, attempting to glean some technical know-how. But more and more of these companies are being forced to move their operations out of the country over concerns of industrial espionage and home nation regulations aimed at keeping advanced technology out of the CCP's hands.
Well, espionage has been a favorite of China's for years. Okay, most of the stuff that they've got in terms of, you know, accelerating themselves so drastically was down to espionage, stealing that information, infiltrating countries, infiltrating companies as well, you know, and just taking information quite literally. That's what they're very good at.
President Biden's new microchip regulation has caused significant issues for Chinese companies. It forbids American companies from selling either chips or the machines to manufacture them to China, and American engineers or scientists from working with Chinese companies.
Well, so they're really making a big push on this then. That's at least what I'm gathering from this.
Companies are now required to obtain special licenses to export advanced chips for use in advanced computing or developing AI systems, all with the goal of introducing strict government oversight and preventing China's acquisition of advanced American chips. The regulation also applies to any foreign firm that uses any American tools or software in the development or production of microchips, which includes a significant number of foreign manufacturers. The EU has taken a slightly softer approach, but has named China as chief concern for technological theft. As a result, the EU is now introducing export controls.
Chief thefter. The thefter of chiefs.
On both physical goods and even investments in key technology areas, such as advanced semiconductors, quantum technologies, and artificial intelligence. Suddenly, China's found itself surrounded by a great wall of microchip denial, aimed squarely.
I like what you've done with that there. A great wall of denial.
At crippling its ability to develop advanced artificial intelligence and other technologies which could have military applications. The United States is widely accepted to maintain the lead in military adoption of AI technology, but some fear that China is closing the gap. For the CCP, AI is believed to be critical and the foundation of all future economic and military power.
Well, I think AI is going to be critical. Well, it is critical in every country now. Why? Well, it exists. It's out there. It is, you know, going to dominate very, very soon. So it's important to get ahead of the game. So why shouldn't it be dominant within anyone's focus of improving their military technology? It has to be, really. It has to be at the forefront because that's what's in. It's happening now.
In 2017, China's State Council issued the New Generation Artificial Intelligence Development Plan, which states that AI will birth a new era of human achievement, from new industries and products to revolutionizing the way that societies operate. To ensure China becomes a global leader, the nation has invested an unknown amount of money into AI research.
It'll be trillions, 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 and trillions. Guaranteed.
Though estimates place the low-end figure at tens of billions of dollars, two Chinese regional governments have made public commitments of 100 billion yuan, or $14.7 billion at the time. The Chinese military believes, and rightfully so, that the future of war is what is increasingly being called intelligentized warfare, marrying artificial intelligence with human operators, but elevating AI to a level where it has increasing autonomy. The United States is already heavily invested in developing key capabilities, such as artificial intelligence-driven electronic warfare.
Sounds a little bit like the Terminator, doesn't it? But I really do think that, you forget about the Terminator itself as a film, but the idea of it, it all makes a lot of sense when you think about where artificial intelligence is going, how the industrial military complex grows with certain technologies. Artificial intelligence and the military pretty much go hand in hand, guys. If you think about it logically, I think this is where it's going. That chip that humans are getting from, Elon Musk and stuff, all of this comes into play. 100 years from now, the world's going to be a very, very, very different place because of all of this technology. It's scary in a way.
Known as cognitive electronic warfare. Currently in development, CEW aims to equip future electronic warfare assets with AIs capable of learning and adapting on the fly in response to enemy action. An aircraft equipped with a CEW system will be able to adapt its offensive and defensive electronic measures during the course of a mission, and then upload a software patch created during the mission to other aircraft to make them even more effective against the threats that aircraft just faced. These thinking systems won't be truly unshackled AIs, but they will still be smart enough and have enough freedom to write their own code in order to evolve on the fly against enemy threats. How far along
on the fly
is China in developing CEW capabilities of its own? This remains unknown given the extremely opaque nature of Chinese society. Whereas the United States military regularly releases updates on new capabilities it's adopted or is working on as a means to deter conflict, China likes to play its cards close to its chest.
Yes, they do like to play their cards close to the chest. America does as well. Just because they're releasing information on technology, what they're doing, how they're innovating, what they're bringing to the table militarily, doesn't mean to say that they're giving everything away. That I can guarantee, guys, okay? They're giving some of the cards away, but the ones that's important, you know, the jacks, the queens, the kings, they're keeping very, very close to them. Trust me on that. I guarantee it.
Either because it's far further behind than anyone has estimated, or because it's created advances it hopes to leverage in surprise against the United States and its allies. One area where China has a massive advantage over the US and EU is in its use of artificial intelligence for domestic surveillance. The nation has not been shy about its capabilities to monitor nearly every square inch of even major cities. And indeed, most Chinese cities have nerve centers from where officials can monitor their citizens in real time.
Well, this is why I like to class China as a technocracy now. Okay, it's not really democratic. It's communist by nature, but it's a technocracy. Why? Because technology controls society. They've got social credit score systems in place now. All right, this has been in place for a while. Many people think of it as a conspiracy theory. It's not. Go do a bit of research. It's open. It's out there. This information is up for grabs. All right, the technocracy that controls the social credit system, people in place, in power, keeping the citizens, doing what they want them to do. Effectively, their freedom of movement is restricted massively. You've got people who have money, who have broke certain rules, their social credit scores been lowered, and they, can't even get on buses and stuff like that. They can't use public transport in the same way. So freedom of movement is something that we need to be worried about in the West as well, not just China, okay? I think it's going to get implemented as best as they can implement it in Western society sooner than we think, troops.
China has touted the benefits of these systems, such as creating adaptable traffic control models.
Yes, all of these things are good, but it's about controlling the populace at the end of the day.
Combating crime, and even things as simple as more efficient trash routes for city services.
No, I'm not saying no, I don't agree with him. I do agree with what you've just said there, but, more efficient trash routes, or if you put your trash out on the wrong day, you're going to get fined for it because there's cameras there can identify you as a person from 1,000 meters away, and it's going to take money from your account without you even being able to do anything about it. So that's what that should have said.
But it doesn't change the fact that the intent of the citywide surveillance system is control.
Absolutely.
To aid in its efforts to surveil its own citizens, China has long been developing surveillance AI systems to filter through all the incoming data and immediately alert operators to everything from accidents to unauthorized public gatherings or simply tracking the location of individuals the Chinese Communist Party considers undesirable. It's not immediately clear that this massive domestic surveillance program is truly translating into advantage in developing military artificial intelligence, but it is possible. Machine learning AIs using deep neural networks rely on having huge quantities of data to train on during the development stage, and the massive Chinese surveillance network can provide that data. But training an AI on domestic surveillance doesn't necessarily translate into creating militarized AI, since military AI would need equally large amounts of data on enemy weapons and sensor systems, things which are simply not in range of Chinese sensors and weapon systems. AI is generally application-specific, as in they do one job and they do it exceedingly well. One known use of advanced American AI is in its AI-enabled analysis of satellite reconnaissance images, with American satellites generating millions of images of Russian and Chinese military installations and forces. Those pictures are turned into training data for an AI system. However,
That's interesting. I didn't think of AI in that way before. I want to hear more about this.
However, while that makes an AI excellent at analyzing even the most minute details of an image, which might hint at real-world developments on the ground, it's generally useless for adopting AI to perform any other tasks. So while China definitely has an advantage in facial recognition technology and domestic surveillance applications of AI, these advantages simply
Right, so facial recognition technology on the battlefield, how is that going to really help out in terms of the military AI adoption? I don't really see a place for it on the battlefield. Is there going to be a reason why you'd want to locate... I mean, I guess if you want to locate like a specific general or something, but they're not going to be fighting on the front lines anyway. They're going to be, you know, in a bunker somewhere, getting their feet massaged, giving out the orders, yeah, okay, eating 3 square meals a day if shit hits the fan. So I don't see how that as a technology works, but we need to think about the bigger picture here of how AI is able to analyze data pretty quickly. Well, I say pretty quickly, more quicker than any human can, put it that way. So analyzing battle data is going to be very, very useful on the ground to be able to, you know, basically adjust your tactics accordingly.
Simply don't translate into a military application. Thus, most analysts are confident that when it comes to militarized applications, China has no advantage over the United States, and may in fact be at a disadvantage, given its inability to gather good data on ongoing conflicts, which could be used as training data for military applications.
Well, given our understanding, our current understanding of them not being able to do so, the reality might be very different. They might actually have the technology and the capability to do that, but we don't know, okay? Just like they hold their cards to the chest with regards to the latest fighter pilots and their latest jets that they've got. We just don't know, guys, okay? Because they don't really give that information away so freely.
The United States, by comparison, enjoys the support of a global system of allies and the use of American recon and intelligence gathering platforms in places with ongoing conflicts, such as Ukraine. It's widely believed, for example, that American F-35s have flown inside of Ukraine airspace for the purpose of intelligence gathering, and that American intelligence operatives have long been operating within Ukraine and possibly even near the front lines themselves. It's not outside of the realm of possibility that some Western equipment donated to Ukraine has been used to collect real-world battlefield data, from which training models for militarized AI can be built. Meanwhile, the likelihood of Russia allowing China to do the same is slim, given that the relationship between the two nations is fraught with tension. Further, we know for a fact that American intelligence drones and aircraft do operate adjacent to Ukrainian airspace, with their powerful sensors able to cover nearly the entire nation and scoop up vast amounts of electronic intelligence. If the rumors of the F-35 operating inside of Ukraine are true, and there's a strong indication that they are, then even more and better quality data could be gathered even from well behind the front lines, where the F-35s are
It almost seems like this whole war is a big, massive simulation for America's capability in the potential threat of China. What do you guys think?
believed to have been flying. While China is unlikely to adapt its domestic surveillance AI for military applications, it still gives it one decisive advantage over the US. Chinese tech companies work hand in hand with the Chinese Communist Party. On top of this, CCP regularly places government representatives on the board of directors of companies that it sees as important for national defense. This means that the
Every country does this. Britain does it. America does it. Germany will do it. Every country does this.
Chinese tech sector enjoys a very strong partnership and collaboration with the Chinese intelligence apparatus, a capability that the US simply does not have. American culture simply doesn't accept the use of technology as a mass surveillance apparatus the same way that Chinese culture does, meaning American companies' collaboration with America's national defense institutions is greatly limited. For its part, the US government, along with American society, have chosen not to pursue unethical applications of AI technology the same way that the Chinese government has.
No, I think they probably have, but it would be unwise for them to allow competitors to, develop unethical AI technology. So I think they will do it, but it'll be in a controlled manner, and it certainly won't be released to the public, that's for sure. But I can't see them falling behind on developing that version of technology just for the sake of trying to be ethical. I don't think that's in their... I just don't think that's a possibility, guys. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments.
This is good news for fans of democracy, but bad news when it comes to developing militarized AI systems of the future.
True.
And this is of increasing concern because U.S. intelligence strongly believes that China is aggressively pursuing autonomous AI lethal weapons. It can be difficult to ascertain Chinese capabilities as the nation remains incredibly secretive about any new developments until they can either be unveiled for deterrence purposes or to export to the global arms market. Despite this, U.S. intelligence is confident that China has made autonomous weapon systems a high priority. In 2018, Zheng Yi, a senior executive at Norinco, China's third-largest defense company, stated that in the battlefield of the future, there would be no humans fighting.
No humans fighting each other with these, hand to hand, weapon to weapon, but certainly be someone behind the scenes. But obviously, that's a time frame, isn't it? In 1,000 years from now, yeah, hopefully humans aren't fighting each other, but humans 1,000 years from now might not even exist on this planet anymore. You know, Elon might have us on Mars or something, fighting wars there.
He further stated that by 2025, he believed that lethal autonomous drones would become commonplace. Most worryingly, transcripts of his speech after the fact were scrubbed of any mention of lethal autonomous weapons, indicating that the Chinese government did not want this information to be public.
Which means that they probably have a good autonomous drone technology. What do you think?
Is already selling combat drones with
what's that tash on his? What's that tash there? It's like an Adolf tash.
Some limited autonomous capabilities on the global arms market. Currently, as seen in Ukraine, the weakest link in drone warfare is the need for a constant communication signal back to the operator. This has led to Ukraine losing an estimated 10,000 drones a month, most of them to Russian electronic warfare.
Yes, but these drones are, you know, DJI Mavics and stuff that have been jailbroken to be able to drop a grenade on something, okay? So this drone that might cost 80 quid or it's been donated, they're not too fussed about that, especially when they've taken out like a £3 million tank, okay? So yes, they use a lot, but they use a lot of other things that cost way more as well. So I don't look at this as a loss. It's just a disposable military asset at this moment in time.
However, some Chinese drones boast of autonomous capabilities that can kick in if a communications link is severed, or simply activate to operate the drone without direct supervision. This includes limited precision strike capability, likely using image recognition of known target vehicles or buildings and autonomous reconnaissance within a set target area. The U.S. is also developing AI with similar capabilities and is believed to be ahead of China, at least for the moment. Recently, the U.S. Navy has even tested a fleet of 3 autonomous large surface warfare ships, which make up what is called the Ghost Fleet. In the near future, the Navy might see as many as 100 unmanned and fully autonomous ships joining its manned vessels, performing duties from fleet air defense to minesweeping and anti-submarine warfare. Eventually, though, the Navy believes that unmanned ships will outnumber manned ships in the fleet 3-to-1. And we're talking large.
Bearing in mind the size of the United States military fleet, we did a video reaction on the size of the United States national capability for the Navy. And every one of the bases had in and around 30, 40, 50,000 active personnel at that base. Loads of ships, loads of docks to fix them. It was just phenomenal, guys. Bearing in mind at the moment, the British military is about 80,000 strong in its entirety. Army, Navy, and Air Force. So these guys had about 20 bases around the country, all with about 30, 40, 50,000 average. Unbelievable capability, guys. Let's not get it twisted.
Large ships, not a swarm of smaller drones, which the U.S. is already adopting into its military architecture. Known as the Replicator Initiative, announced early in the year of 2023, the goal of the project is for the U.S. Armed Forces to adopt, quote, thousands of armed drones within a matter of 2 years. Wow. This isn't a lofty future capabilities program. It's a program using lessons learned in Ukraine to make the U.S. military a drone army today.
So it is a bit of a war simulation, isn't it? I've heard this theory before with regards Ukraine. It's like a battlefield simulation being played out so the other countries indirectly involved can better their military capability. I know that's a bit far-fetched. I'm not saying it's what I believe, but it has been chucked out there a bit.
But where U.S. autonomous capabilities are likely far surpassing China's is in the area of aerial combat, known as collaborative combat capability. The U.S. Air Force is developing AI tech, which will power a fleet of small expendable drones that will fly alongside manned aircraft. These drones will make up the backbone of future air power and fly alongside the NGAD, or the sixth-generation air superiority fighter, currently slated to be in service as early as 2030. Each NGAD will serve as a mothership to as many as 5 drones, who will cruise alongside the NGAD and then ahead of it and have the ability to directly engage enemy fighters without supervision from the mothership. Other nations are adopting collaborative combat capabilities, but the U.S. seems to have a solid lead. It's been developing dogfighting AIs since the late 2010s, when DARPA held a competition.
Right, I thought it would have been like 3 years ago, not like 14, 15 years ago. That's crazy.
That pitted various AIs against each other in a dogfighting trial. The winning AI then faced a real human pilot and soundly defeated him in every matchup. China performed a similar feat, using an AI-powered drone to take on another drone flown by a human pilot. However, it's not known if the test was less rigorous than the one undertaken by DARPA, as these were not drones with the same characteristics as a modern fighter jet. By comparison, the U.S. Air Force has flown multiple training missions with AIs fully in control of an unmanned F-16. Known as Skyborg, the development of dogfighting AIs has evolved to the
Skynet. Skyborg.
Point of installing them in actual fighter aircraft, and then letting those aircraft fly real training missions, apparently to overwhelming success. This likely means that the U.S. is far ahead of China in the capability to directly create drone wingmen for its future 6th-gen fighter. There is the possibility, though, that China could actually be at an advantage over the United States by virtue of being less technologically capable. While the U.S. has an overwhelming advantage in the foundations and institutions of research into AI and other technological sectors, this doesn't necessarily mean that it has an advantage when it comes to adopting new technologies. It's known as leapfrog development, and it occurs when a country skips an entire development stage simply because it's better primed to adopt a future development.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that China's been pretty good at over the past 20 years or so, leapfrogging. Why? Because it's easy for them to just miss it out and then take some from espionage, stealing the technology and then implementing it then. It's what China does. They've got the ability to be able to mass produce things as well really quickly, so it makes sense.
Then when deeply entrenched in a current level of development. The best example of this is the adoption of paperless and AI-driven payment networks using facial recognition in China, which sprung up as a result of the nation having no easy process for conducting credit checks, amongst other economic capabilities enjoyed in the West for decades. A similar development is the wide adoption of cellular phones in underdeveloped nations that had little prior landline infrastructure. In both cases, the need for convenience existed, and thus it was easier to adopt new technology that more developed nations adopted slower due to their pre-existing infrastructure. China is not blind to how the adoption of AI could lead to a leapfrog capability over the U.S., and it has everything to do with all the advantages the U.S. enjoys today. The United States enjoys an overwhelming advantage in everything from stealth technology to aircraft carriers and precision strike weapons. But all of those have created a deeply rooted system of business practices and political interests, which makes it incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to adopt any new disruptive technology.
That's really interesting. I never thought about it like that. So the fact that they've got great capabilities now, it means that they're going to struggle to kind of innovate and reinvent the wheel, so to speak, whereas China, if they haven't got something, they can have a look at what other people have, instantly think, right, we can make this better in this way, and be more inclined to do so, whereas America has a little bit of an inclination to go, well, you know, this has worked for a long time. That old chestnut in the military, I've seen it myself in the Royal Marines, okay? It works, why change it? Well, okay, but these guys over here have changed it, they've reinvented it, they've done it better, and it's working. So, yeah, in that regard, I can see how China's lack of technology at this moment in time, or advanced technology within the military capability, can be a better thing in the long run.
China, on the other hand, has no such culture and is thus much freer to adopt a brand new disruptive tech than the US. It's similar to warnings within the US Navy itself in the years prior to World War II that the battleship was becoming obsolete and that the future was the aircraft carrier. Deeply entrenched dogmatic beliefs in the battleship, skepticism of developing airplane technology, and a political and business culture built around the battleships, however, made it nearly impossible for the aircraft carrier's proponents to be heard. Thus, by the start of World War II, the aircraft carrier was still seen as a support weapon rather than the primary strike weapon of the US Navy. Had the aircraft carrier been adopted earlier as the primary strike weapon, World War II would have likely been much different and far shorter. Likewise, established US technology threatens to choke off the adoption of new disruptive technologies. The Chinese firmly believe that the United States spends entirely too much time and money maintaining and upgrading mature weapon systems, limiting how much it can invest in developing and adopting new disruptive technologies. By comparison, the Chinese military acknowledges that much of its equipment is obsolete and in need of replacement, placing it in the perfect position to simply adopt new disruptive tech rather than investing in legacy systems. In one specific example, China's investing heavily in developing small, cheap, autonomous submarines that can directly threaten US aircraft carriers. While China does currently have a submarine fleet, most of it is far from modern and aging out of service anyway. This opens up the door for China to simply refuse to invest in a legacy fleet and instead build a new one made up of expendable drones that can overwhelm US defenses. Meanwhile, the United States is deeply invested politically and economically in maintaining its fleet of submarines, which
same as Britain, we're heavily invested in that. We spend a fortune on it as well because it's a nuclear capability and a nuclear deterrent capability. So yeah, I can understand that. It's making a lot of sense. Although China has an old, aging submarine fleet, it might actually be a good thing once they start developing their new fleet entirely. And it's going to be, ahead of the curve in terms of AI. It's going to be drone autonomous, all of that stuff. Makes a lot of sense, this.
May represent an outdated way of thinking about war. Rather than directly competing with U.S. military power by building Chinese equivalents, China may simply be able to adopt new, more efficient and cheaper ways of threatening said U.S. military power. Yeah. But it's not all doom and gloom for the U.S. military, because in recent years there has been a recognition of America's reluctance to invest in new capabilities in favor of legacy systems. The Replicator Initiative represents the most ambitious of these attempts to change America's defense culture, and the program will not end when it succeeds at adding thousands of new combat drones to America's arsenal by 2025.
That's like next year then.
Rather, the Replicator Initiative is seen as an ongoing program that'll seek to continuously innovate and adopt rapidly emerging technologies and ensure the U.S. does not suffer the fate of so many previous world powers by becoming rigidly stuck in the past.
Right, troops, that was USA versus China military army weapons technology comparison. So just to summarize that real quickly, it's apparent, it's my knowledge and understand that, when it comes to the greatest military on the planet and their actual capability, their modernization programs, their budget, their size, their strength, their ability to be able to forward project and fight on multiple fronts, America wins hands down, okay? But is that going to be the case in 5, 10, 15 years' time when these old aging militaries such as China adopts and leapfrogs the technology that's already implemented in today's British militaries and American militaries and just creates an entire military based on the newest technology? Whereas we're a little bit reluctant to kind of move into that technical space because of age-old, programs, political investments, people cashing in on the money that is generated from the manufacturing of these things. It's politics as well, guys, okay? So, yeah, I think at this moment in time, obviously, United States is there, but I think it's not going to be a slow and gradual thing. It's going to be something that potentially flips on its head, which we don't want, guys, okay? So, yeah, really interesting video. If you stayed this far, it is long, 33 minutes. Please like, share, subscribe to my channel, join the Patreon, join as a member, click the links, all of that good stuff. And I'll see you in the next video, troops. I'll see you in the comments.